Hi everyone. So I got another question from one of my students asking me how to approach a fictional essay, or what are the key points that you should know when responding to a fictional text. First of all, in an extended response essay to a fiction text, you can talk about various things such as character, setting, language, themes, etc. And you should also explain the effect that a text has on you. This is what fiction is all about, how it makes you feel. So I'm not going to give you specific key points, but I will elaborate on what things you should really take into consideration. There is nothing as fixed that you can point and say, okay, this is what you have to think about. Secondly this, thirdly this. It's nothing like that, but I will take you through how to analyze a fiction extract. You should have uh, an argument that uses evidence from the text, that has clear points, and your essay also should draw a conclusion. Without a conclusion, an essay is not an essay. Your essay questions always focus on characters, the voice, themes, and different ideas that you and I can have. Then the language form, especially the structure as well. So it is important as a student for you to identify the task, to focus on the task, and then find evidence that specifically supports your response to it. Do not go about and give evidence that really does not make any difference to your answer. So it has to be relevant. So a good essay is always structured around the argument with a very clear conclusion. Okay, and the next thing is trying to annotate. Okay, the key, if you ask me what is the key or the key point to know in approaching any fictional essay, responding to any fictional text, I would say annotate. The key to planning an essay is to focus on the question first of all, and the next, what you're asked to do. The next stage is, first you will identify the question, what the question is all about, what the question really wants from you, and the next stage will be trying to annotate your extract. The extract itself you will be annotating. That is to find evidence from your longer text to support your answer. Try to keep the question in mind as you do this. Sometimes we go overboard or we forget the lines, and ultimately we end up writing something that is entirely different halfway through, right? But to not go off track, you're going to make sure that you annotate. You'll be keeping the question in your mind when you do this, and highlight or try to underline the key parts of the text that you will be able to use in your response, Please do not go ahead and highlight each and every word, and it just looks like a rainbow at the end. So I'm not trying to tell you that. Highlight only the necessary parts of your response so that you will make use of it in your writing. Okay, and then I would also advise you to keep on thinking about the narrative advice and how the characters are presented, because characters are very important when it comes to fictional extracts, because the extract itself lies on the characters in order for you to go ahead and imagine. So how the characters are presented, and then what are the main themes. These are some important things that you should consider and try underlining. Okay, and themes of the text, and then what the structure or shape of the text, which means the structure, right? And what language devices are used, the techniques. I also had a webinar on this, introducing the terminology. So those who attended that will have an idea. how to identify those techniques and devices, right? And most importantly, you are not going to write to you're just not going to write all the thoughts that come to your mind. What you have to do is to identify the audience to whom you're going to cater your writing to, who the audience for the text is, and how that affects the way the text that is written. And then, if you're looking at an extract, read it more than once. That is another key, right? Not just look for. First, I would advise is to go through the questions first and then come to your extract, so that the questions have been already registered in your mind, in your brain, and then when you come back to the extract, you know exactly where to target your answer. So this way, this is another trick and tip that will help you on the go. Reading the questions first, coming back to the extract, read the extract not just once, more than once. So first read the entire text from the beginning to end and get a sense of its purpose and meaning. On your next read through, as in when you read it the second time, try to annotate. The second key point which I mentioned, try to annotate the important words and phrases, so that way your answer is slightly connected to the text that you're referring to. And then how do you plan your response, your essay response? When you have finished reading your text very carefully and you are done with the second stage of annotating as well, what you will do is to make the essay plan, to make a plan for it. Now all these things will happen in just seconds and minutes. You're not going to take hours and hours to plan. And start with, if you are used to a mind map, or if you are a bullet point person, stick to whatever the method that is convenient to you, the technique that is convenient to you. And with all these ideas that you have absorbed thus far, you're going to think of all that will relate to the question and put them down in a mind map or a bullet point. Use a pencil for this, and try to connect the dots, link your ideas to specific parts of the text, and then pick the points you are going to use. Pick the points that you are going to use. If you write 10 points, maybe 8 will be sufficient. Okay, maybe. Or maybe you will make use of all the points. It's up to you. And aim for at least 4 to 5 points. Don't ever stop with 2 points just because you see few marks, or always stick to 4 or 5 points. I would say 5. And in an essay. So finally, try to arrange your points in a very logical order so that it makes sense to the reader. And next comes the structuring of the essay, which is extremely important. What you should do is, when you consider writing your essay and you find the structure will always consist of 3 parts, and you obviously know it: introduction, the paragraphs, and the body. So it can be useful to think of your essay in as a layered sandwich or a burger. This is also a technique which I've used, which I've taught in my classes, that is called the PEE technique. You will have the points, the evidence, and the explanation. To make sure that you include all the main points and you are not short of any points and evidence. Your essay will have 3 main parts: body, introduction, body, and the conclusion. In introduction, you should focus on the question mainly. Start with the topic sentence, and then when it comes to the main body, where you will lay out your paragraphs and talk about it, 4 to 5 paragraphs is more than enough. And finally, you have a short conclusion. Keep it short, not a chunky conclusion, right? And keep your conclusion short, but this conclusion should definitely focus on the question again. In the topic sentence, the first sentence of your essay should definitely sum up your answer to the question. Otherwise, your introduction is going to be very loose, and the reader will not really feel like continuing to read, right, past your introduction. So therefore, make a positive statement that relates to the question. Always the first paragraph and introduction should go side to side or relate directly to the question. And then use keywords from the question to demonstrate that you have understood the question clearly. Right, now comes the structuring of the essay, writing the main body. Now introduction is over, where you will be relating your question to the introduction to the question. Now comes the paragraphs. Now how do you structure them really? Each paragraph should contain only one point. You should be talking only about one point in one paragraph. Do not put 2 to 3 points in one paragraph. Then the point is lost, because you are directing me from one point to the other in the same paragraph, so it's just going to become a pickle. So a paragraph, the purpose of a paragraph is to convey one point at a time. So each paragraph will contain only one point. So make this thing clear with me itself, right? And your paragraph should have a link to the previous idea. There should be a transition, a smooth transition from what you're saying to the next paragraph, and then a statement of the main point in the paragraph. The start of the paragraph should always be a point. Remember, each paragraph will have the PEE technique: point, evidence, and explanation. Whoever wants the PEE technique or the slides can just message me. I will share it with you. And some evidence from the text to support what you really think. Now this will probably include something on language or structure. It differs. And a discussion of the evidence and links to any other possible evidence. A discussion should happen. You're not just going to put the point and then the evidence and just explain something. No, explanation is everything. And towards the end of your explanation, you will link it back to the question or to the next point. Link it back to the question or to the next point. You will be starting each paragraph with a link to the essay as a whole, and students should make sure that they start each of their paragraph with a link to the essay as a whole. If there is no link, probably there is no connection, in other words, to what you're speaking. And the part which came immediately before should have a connection to the next paragraph. And this technique will help you to make a chain of different paragraphs. So each paragraph will contain a point. Have you heard of connectives? Most of the children, not most actually, some are not really aware of these connectives. By using connectives in your fictional essay, you are going to show them that you are aware of the techniques, as in connectives help you to show the relationship between each paragraph that you are writing. For example, a few connectives that I can mention to you is, let's say you say firstly, secondly, on the other hand, however, and if you want to compare two similar things, you will use the connective similarly, and the opposite would be in contrast, alternatively, on the other hand, etc., etc. So you can use these connectives in order to show that there is a smooth transition from each paragraph to the next. Right, then next comes the quotation. How do you quote when writing a fictional essay or responding to a fictional text? Now when I say quote, some children, what they do is they copy paste half the paragraph into their writing and call it a quotation, which is terribly wrong. Don't do this. It's wrong, because you can't, let's say the expected word count is 250, 50 words is gone for quoting, so it's wrong. Keep your quotation strong and to the point. I will tell you how do you do it. To support your points, you need to use quotations, right? Without quotations, your points will be pointless because you don't have any evidence to back up from the text. So quotations should be kept short and to the point, and also use just a few words, which is more powerful rather than copying out chunks from the text. It shows that you are being extremely selective in what you say. Means you definitely want to point out those 3 words, so you pick those 3 words and put it as a quotation, and that's it. You don't have to copy the entire line. Okay? And also be careful that when copying, you have to copy the exact words. Do not replace words from the text. Copy, but copy accurately. Try to put the quotation. This is also one important technique which I always share in my class. That is, you have to try and put your quotation inside your own sentence, inside the point that you are trying to make. It should not look very different, as in your point is clearly different and then your quotation is different here, and the explanation, people should not be able to differentiate as such. Try to put it inside your own sentence rather than putting it in the middle of the page and then going about commenting on it. This is called trying to embed a quotation. Okay? And let's say that let's say you want to speak about a quotation. This is the quote: flying like a butterfly to convey blah blah blah. So rather than stating a line so obvious, let's say student A has chosen to write it this way: he flew like a butterfly. This is an example of a simile which shows that he was light and graceful. This is how student A has answered. And student B has answered this way, saying the author uses similes, for example, and he goes ahead and tries to write he flew like a butterfly. Then what about student C? Now student C has decided to embed the quotation within his answer. So student C will answer like this: the author uses the simile of the boy flying, open quotation, and you say like a butterfly, close quotation marks, and then say to convey the impression that he is light and graceful. Now this is the perfect answer that you should approach to write in your essay, rather than being very, very obvious. Author uses similes, author uses metaphors, author uses personification. Not this. First come with your meaning and then embed the quotation and then keep on continuing. This looks very smooth and slick in your answer. Try to make most of quotations. Making the most of quotations is all what really matters at the end of the day. And try to make a close analysis of the language in the quotation and use that to support your point. There are several ways you can do this. And finally comes the conclusion. That is, to conclude, you're going to sum up the points you have made so far and finally write a single sentence which answers the question again, and then it will be quite like your opening sentence, but do not repeat the same words that you have already used in your topic sentence. If it was a teacher like me who has your paper, I will definitely go back to the first sentence and try to match it with the last which you have written. So don't take a risk, try to do your best, and your topic sentence and the conclusion sentence will be pretty much the same, but try to word it differently. So I hope this was helpful, especially to those students and teachers who are trying to to help their GCSEs. Thank you so much.